Yes, you are now listening to the sound of Sports Reports' audit. And we got a loaded show tonight. I've always wanted to say that. Tonight, we're going to talk about the NBA. My favorite player is out for the season now. We're going to talk about some season ticket drama. We're going to talk about that topic that nobody really wants to talk about because they get so angry. NIL. And then we're going to clear it up with some ACC news. But because I got with me, the one and only, the world-renowned, born in Texas, raised in VA, representing everything New Jabruth. And he got two messages for you. He said, one, he will see your Blair Witch and raise you a New Jersey Devil. He also wants you to know that Philadelphia and New York are Jersey's tenants. They just renting them out. He is Mr. Logical. And I am your unorthodox statistician going left so much you thought I was southpaw, moving in ways that Hank could only dream of without putting my knee on the mat. I am 2-5. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things and have you a liquid death while you at it. Let's get it. So, Mr. Logical.
I'm here.
My favorite player out for the season.
Oh, man.
Is it time for the Mavs to just shut it down? AD just say, you know what? Not needed this year. We still got Lively's out still. Gafford has gotten hurt in the last couple of weeks. Dwight Powell was nursing injuries for a minute. Is it time for the Mavs to just say, let the balls fall where they may, and let us get in this Cooper Flag sweepstake?
I mean, the Cooper Flag sweepstakes for them is
it's rough.
They can get in the 2025-2026 Dallas Mavericks rebuild or retool or rebrand or whatever the case may be. I think Cooper Flag, because right now we're at 62 games in. Even if they lost 20 straight games, they still would be 32-50. I'm not banking on the Pelicans or the Jazz getting 30 wins, nor would I imagine Washington,
Charlotte,
maybe Toronto, maybe even the 76ers being above 32 wins. So
you know who is going to get 30 wins? The Portland Trail Blazers.
I'm proud of them. They're gonna have a nice little parade in their town. Most strip clubs per capita, by the way, in Portland. But yeah, so Dallas is in a weird predicament because I think Kobe Bryant said this: you miss 100% of shots you don't take. I think they took a shot with the Luka trade, thinking that we're already defensively big with Lively and Gafford. Let's get offensively big with AD. Let's get, firepower from the outside with the streaky Kyrie and Klay Thompson, and then let our role players kind of play off of that. Because I think with the role players and the healthy bigs, I think PJ Washington gets more shots. Because Luka was kind of controlling. Luka was getting people shots, but I think he was getting people shots that he wanted per play. Like, hey, I'm setting this up. So if I can't beat this guy, or if this guy doesn't fall from my pump fake, pivot, pump fake, up and under, I'm going to kick it out. You got to be ready. I think in the Kyrie offense with the bigs working and Klay working, I think a guy like PJ Washington would have got a lot more 3-and-D opportunities. I think he could have just focused on just getting open. He probably was going to get the ball. Playing off of AD. AD was going to bring their big away from the basket because you're not going to have your best defending big defending Lively if him and AD are both in the game. So I think what they had was a good plan. I don't know if it was a championship plan like a lot of people were prognosticating when the trade happened. I thought it was good. I thought it would have been a situation where I thought LA was going to just kind of play to the average. I think at that point they probably had about with 30, 32 games left, give or take, somewhere in that range when the trade was made. I figured you were going to get about an 18 and 14 out of that. And then Dallas was going to be able to compete because they were already up. They were above 500. And I figured they was going to bully ball and get a lot of wins that way. But once all these guys were injured, I mean, you trade for AD and he's injured. He comes back, he gets injured. Kyrie's injury has nothing to do with the trade. It's just another
you remember
bad occurrence that happened to a team that, it has a lot of bad luck. Some teams, it's just luck. Sometimes it's a matter of like not letting the injury bug bite you.
Well, you remember when the trade first happened, one of the first things that I said was you're relying on two dudes that get hurt a lot, AD and Kyrie. And Kyrie at that time was having some disc issues in his back. So he wasn't even necessarily the healthiest at the time that the trade went down. But the way that I looked at it was, if you're just looking at two players, forget health, everything created equal, you can't get much better players than Anthony Davis than they got for Luka. We talked about it. They allegedly talked to Giannis or talked to Milwaukee about Giannis.
Milwaukee wasn't giving up Giannis.
They allegedly talked to Anthony Edwards, or Minnesota about Anthony Edwards. And
what we said about that Giannis, was like any team calling about trading our number one, marquee guys like that.
Well, see, this is the problem with Giannis though, because I don't think the Bucks are going anywhere. They might go to the second round, but Giannis has been on record to say, I want to win. Whether that's here or not, I want to win. So it's kind of one of those things. Like, they might not have listened to Giannis right now, but I don't know if Giannis is necessarily off the table. You know what I mean? So, yeah, but the problem is if you're Milwaukee, you got to look at it as, is Luka going to re-sign here? Probably not.
That's the thing. No one would have known. But in the same sense, we talk about this a lot, and I know it comes off as like, I won't say a loser's mentality, but it has to be a reality that sets in. It's like, if you're a star player on a team and you're giving your team 30, 12, and 9 on 60% shooting, and you're struggling to get wins, your team collectively is not good enough.
Right.
In order for you to go to a team that's good enough, you going there would deplete the new team, the Carmelo Anthony conundrum.
Yeah, so like go to the Knicks and nowhere to Miles Bridges and
Miles Bridges, Josh Hart, Anunoby, and a couple of firsts. So it's like you're back in the same boat, and that's if you're lucky enough that New York stops or Milwaukee stops there as far as like who they want in return if you want Giannis.
Right.
Because no one's gonna this Luka deal. I don't think another deal like that's ever gonna happen. I saw somebody posted they tried to make that trade on 2K and it wouldn't go through.
Well, I know
it said it didn't match or something, like it didn't match on a video game. The video game's like, nah, we can't do this trade.
Well, I know since the trade has happened, there's been alleged execs that are looking at Ja Morant, LaMelo Ball, Trae Young as candidates to be moved, even though I feel Trae Young should have probably been moved 2 years ago, but that's just me. LaMelo is probably about that time too, so I mean, I don't know. We'll see how that goes.
But Melo wasn't getting you to the Western Conference Finals. What you would trade Melo is
no, I'm not talking about for Luka.
No, like you if you're trying to trade Melo, you're gonna get. I mean, who
is it disrespectful to Carmelo Anthony to call him Melo? To call LaMelo Ball Melo?
I mean, we say like, nah. I think Carmelo was good with it. If he still was in the league,
you had to think about it though.
Because I never even thought about it until. But that's the same thing when they gave Jokic 15,
right?
And he said he was a little pissed off about that. So like now, when you retire it, you can retire. You can't retire it as Carmelo Anthony.
I understand. I don't like it, but I understand why Denver did that. But I don't.
They did it to be petty.
Yeah, but I don't like it.
I don't even think that was Jokic's number. I think he just was like, whatever, I ride horses and also play
Melo started it. So hey, how about
But the Dallas deal is, like I said, it's looking like fire Nico Harrison is the champ, but it's like I think it would have worked. I think,
and they're raising their tickets too.
The rumor, I don't want to buy into rumors and innuendo, but The whole them trying to go to Vegas, I don't know if this is the best way to do it.
I don't
I
think
mean, if
either. I think you just
realistically,
want to get there. Like the Oakland A's, right? The Oakland A's wasn't out there trying to figure it out. They were
but
they were
they didn't do any improvements to their city. They didn't accept any proposals from the city for a new stadium. They rejected everything, and then all of a sudden they moved to Vegas. So
yeah,
you let me know. I don't. When's the last time they had a star home run hitter that attracted eyes in Oakland?
Mark McGuire.
Exactly. So they weren't trying. They weren't trying to be in the limelight, and I think Dallas is doing the same thing. But when we talked about this, we talked about this a few weeks ago. Like, yo, the NBA needs to give us something to talk about. I know the trade probably wasn't in direct response to people saying there's nothing to talk about in the league, but it has given a lot of conversation because it was a lot of pro. I think people are on TV because they can't go on TV every single time they're on TV and say, I don't get why they did this. So people are saying, hey, it could work. Very similar to what I said a few minutes ago about, having the bigs in Dallas and then LA was going to try to figure it out. And next year it'll work for, Luka and LeBron and that
Mhm.
combination. But at that point, that dude's 41, but JJ seems to be making it work. But like I said, when you're playing Denver on Tuesday and you're playing the Clippers on Thursday and you're playing a different team Saturday, all of that works. But if you have to play right now, the Lakers are sitting at two in the
They're
West,
the 2 seed. Yep.
2 seed. So even the Clippers when healthy, they give the Lakers fits. It's a hometown little brother, big brother rivalry. They have big time players on the Clippers. They have some mediocre role players on the
They have a
Lakers. I
good
think it kind
coach.
of balances out. They have a good coach. They have a good coach that knows the Lakers' best player.
Mhm.
I'm not saying you have some secret that LeBron's weakness and
Right, right.
Tyronn Lue
But
knows
it
it,
doesn't
but
hurt.
it doesn't hurt that you might be able to squeeze out game one 107 to 104 if you hit timely shots if you're the Clippers. And so like I think that Lakers experiment is starting to look a little better.
Mhm.
Uh
I still gotta think that at some point their lack of big man is gonna hurt them at some point. It might not make them lose a series, but it might make the series a lot longer than
yeah,
it
like I
should
said,
be.
that you lose a game 107 or 103 or something like that because yeah, Luke and LeBron got you 65 points, but Rui goes 4 for 14 because you're trying
Mhm.
to get him open shots. And I think the Lakers have been more deliberate and adamant about just shooting the three because I think when in doubt, if you're spacing the floor, you let LeBron be the slasher, you let these other guys work around. Luca likes to dribble into the paint. He shoots a lot of either step back threes or he dribbles and he creates contact in the paint, tries to get fouls. Maybe in the playoffs, he gets to the free throw line 6 or 7 more times a game than he does now, and that kind of slows the game down. And that way, the big is kind of nullified. But Zubac had like 16 rebounds. I think he was like 13 for 15, like 16 rebounds.
He normally does
So
that against the Lakers.
yeah, and if you're Tyronn Lue, it's like, all right, Kawhi, you like the pull up J. We got Zubac's down there. Y'all just keep doing your thing. They don't have anybody because Jackson Hayes can't rebound with him. So he's
Right.
getting a lot of rebounds, putbacks. So you're not losing your big on the offensive end emotionally. He's engaged in the game because he's getting 12, 13 rebounds, maybe 6 or 7 O boards, and he's getting layups. And I think that could cause the Lakers trouble. But
Well, speaking of the Lakers being the 2 seed, you see who that number 1 seed opening up that lead, still in an 11-game lead. SGA went off for 50 again last night, 51 points, 7 assists. He has the most 20-point, 30-point, 40-point, 50-point games in the league this year. So, if we look back at the end of the season and Oklahoma City is not in the NBA finals, what will be the reason why?
youth,
Okay.
youth, and an ill-timed injury, maybe to one of their wing defenders. Maybe not so much Chet, because I know Chet, he's been out,
Mhm.
throughout, like he missed his whole rookie year. So he's missed some time just hitting the floor very hard. I think he hurt his hip. Missed a
Yeah.
lot of
He
time.
missed like 3 or 4 months this year, and
Yeah,
Hartenstein was in and out the lineup at
in and
times.
out. So I think they can play without those bigs. Any team in the West, other than Denver. But with Denver, I think you just do the whole what Miami did in like one of the games against
That
Denver.
Jokic, yeah.
Just let Jokic let them cook. Let them cook. Stay attached to the 3-point shooters, and then maybe you steal a game on the road or something like that. Like you just let him cook. You stay hooked to all these guys at the 3-point line, and just let him go against whenever your 6'9", your 6'8", 6'9" defenders, and say, hey, but if they lose one of these wing defenders, or one of these 3-and-D guys, or one of these, I think that'll hurt them because that might make Shea have to shoot 6 more shots. Maybe Chet
Yeah.
puts up 6 more shots. Then
Well, I
I think
guess the
that'll
only
be the thing
thing
that would hurt them.
well, I guess the only thing that could hurt Boston is if you let them get a 22-point lead on you. So as we're looking through this,
Like you should never
Philly,
say it in the first quarter.
Philly finally did the right thing. Joel Embiid is shut down for the rest of the season. But then something that caught my eye was the Sixers maybe at some point being able to, I don't think they will yet, but being able to try to petition for a medical retirement.
Oh yeah, I like the verbiage in that. Being a criminal justice major, a doctor, an independent doctor selected by the NBA. How independent is that doctor?
They did the same thing with Tua, with the
How
NFL.
independent is a doctor that's selected by the NBA, not agreed upon by Embiid's camp and
Right.
his lawyers, selected by the
Or the
NBA
Sixers.
or the Sixers. Even
Yeah,
but
just
even the Sixers, I think the Sixers might more likely be more in line with the NBA
mhm.
selecting a doctor because it ultimately could potentially save the Sixers money if he has to be medically retired. You get your percentage of your money back, whatever the case may be. I would have. I know David Stern put the rule in saying that your team can't tell a player they can't participate in the Olympics. But Kawhi was on that team last year and suddenly did not play. So maybe he just thought it was going to be too much fun and they were laughing and joking
and he
too
still
much.
missed 45 games or so to start this season.
So it's like, I don't know if Embiid was like, part of those previous, those same kind of conversations. But if I was his agent, I would have been like, dog, don't do it. Like, if you're gonna go to the Olympics, go as an ambassador to France the way Snoop Dogg was. Snoop Dogg was everywhere. $500,000 a day. Like, go hang out with Snoop Dogg, represent France, and do that to build your image because people are gonna crush you if you go out here and play for the USA, win gold in France, and then you come out next season and you can't play a full season. Like,
Right.
that's exactly how I would have laid it out for him. Like, listen, if you do this, just know that this could potentially be your backlash. You can win gold and you can go back to Philly, but you got to play 82 games in Philly. Well, you have 82 games in your schedule. It's a
Right.
long season. You just had you just kind of like lumbered through your last playoff series, which once again was very short of the Eastern Conference Finals yet again. So, but I mean, I know agents can be fired and they have to do what their clients want. But just as a senior person on earth who's kind of
Mhm.
learned some things and they could have, I don't know what level of experience his agent has, but it's like, yeah, I've seen this play out before. The court of public opinion can impact your paycheck.
Right. Right.
So
And then of course,
I won't say he allowed it, but unfortunately, that comes with being that big. Like, yo, bro, you 7 feet tall, 300 pounds. It's like your body needs a break. If anybody's body needs a break.
mhm. And then of course, as the Timberwolves are playing well, Anthony Edwards out here, averaging over 30 over the last couple of games, and then Julius Randle is back. So sorry, Minnesota. It was fun while it lasted, But then as I was looking around the NBA, I was like, look at my Detroit Pistons. 21-9 in their last 30 games. They were my team, my surprise team to make the playoffs this year. And I didn't mean the play in when I said it. I think Asar Thompson, I'm glad that he's got the blood clot issue taken care of. So his defense is going to be needed, especially if it stays as is and they match up with the Knicks. That's
Yes.
going to be a tougher matchup than it should be for the Knicks. They'll win, but
Wait, hold on. You say that, but you know how I feel about Houston, and like I'm not riding Detroit's bandwagon, but Detroit at least has a team that makes the most sense. They are properly diverted.
yeah, they
They
got the
have
vets.
young stars that play major minutes, major roles with key vets and a
Malik
smart
Beasley,
coach.
Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr.
So you have guys who play the style of your young starting group coming in as veterans who in the 7-game series, like I said, if you can, I know it's tough, but if you can take away Jalen Brunson, you put this length on him, pause, and you just make it difficult for him to score. Yeah, he still might put up 40, but if he goes 18 for, if he goes like
Well, he
14
did a
for
lot of that in the
30,
playoffs last year.
that's what I'm saying. But you see
Yeah.
how I looked against Indiana, right? In those games where like he couldn't pass the ball and just run off a couple of screens just to attract attention. And while he's doing that, this other guy is like making a move with the ball in his hand, making a play for another guy. Like, I don't think the Knicks have that guy. And I think in a 7-game series, so like I said, all you need is a team to steal one. If you're
Right.
the either the underdog or the young team, or even not even like a massive underdog, but the team that people don't expect, like you said, the series matchup of the Nuggets and the Warriors. You don't really expect the Warriors to beat the Nuggets because the Nuggets have, they have an MVP caliber player that they run everything
Continuity.
through that you can't rattle.
Right.
But if Steph goes out there and puts out 38 and they still game one in Denver,
There's
now
doubt creep in.
now there's doubt. Now there's now
The media.
you're pressing a little hard game to Steph comes back, hits you with like
And
another
hey, don't
30, brother,
forget, they
32,
lost games 1 and 2 at home to Minnesota last year.
Yeah, so it's like
You know?
it can happen. So I think with a team like Detroit, the way they're playing, I think they're playing very well. Like Rez in the group last week when the guy was counting off the wins, and he was like, I see this guy counting off wins in the regular seasons. And I was like, yo, I see a man living out his dreams in that clip. I think you as a team, you need some of that. You need some of that.
And
This is fun basketball in February and March as you prepare for the more intense,
right.
scrutinized basketball that is going to come along in April because they're positioning themselves well. I don't think the Heat are going to catch them. So if they just keep playing to the standard that they're playing, they're 5 or 6.
They're only a game behind Indiana and Milwaukee.
Yeah. So like I said,
I doubt
keep
they'll
playing to their standard.
finish in front of them, but I'm just saying, but speaking of Houston, because you brought them up, real quickly, Reed Shepherd with 25 points last night. Like we've been talking about it. They got too much. He had 49 points in a G League game earlier this year.
He put up like 33 shots.
It's just I know.
I
but
think
still.
He put up. They let him. They
Hey,
said
did nobody care when Michael Jordan did it? So we don't care when Reed Shepherd did it.
They're like, listen, man, come down here, get your confidence up. Watch that thing go through the hoop as much as you need before we send you back.
And if you look at the standings right now, they're only a game and a half behind the Grizzlies. And don't forget, they beat the Grizzlies 3 out of 4 this year. But Jaren Jackson got injured last night, ankle week to week. I never really heard that one. I heard day to day. I never really heard week to week, but he's week to week. They're only a game and a half behind the Grizzlies. They're only 2.5 behind the Nuggets and Lakers. So, we got 20 games left. It's going to be a fun run down the stretch. They might stay. I think they might jump the Grizzlies for 4.
The Grizzlies need to tighten up, man. 3-7 in your last 10.
Yeah. And I remember I told you, like 2 weeks ago, I told you, I was like, yo, Ja looks real, because I was asking you, what was that word they were using about LeBron? Disengaged. He looks disengaged at times. There's times where he comes down the court and he just stands in the corner and just kind of watches the offense. And it's like, whoa. I know that we don't want you to necessarily go AI style with it, but they supposed to be watching you standing. They supposed to be standing in the corner watching you work, not the other way around.
Maybe they're using these
What up,
regular season
Residente?
games
Yes, sir.
as like, hey, let's to quote Phil Jackson, he said he did it with Kobe and he did it with Jordan. He was like, listen, the first 3 quarters, let's work the offense. Fourth quarter is yours.
Yours. And that's what Ja Morant, that's what we're waiting for. But the problem is that he's obviously explosive. He has handles and all that good magic.
Reckless though. He is
But
reckless.
he's not like an
and
Allen
he's
Iverson.
himself. He
He's not
is.
like a
He's
Kyrie.
more athletic. He's a more athletic version of those guys. I think he's a little too reckless. He could do a couple of you cock it back and then bring it under and lay it up a little bit more. And that way you're not getting bumped in the air with your arm cocked all the way back. You're just kind of like, oh, let me up and under, get this layup and stay on the floor and not keep falling on the floor because that floor is hard. Like you're jumping to the air and you're hitting a 7-foot tall guy in the shoulder with your hip and then uncontrollably crashing to the floor multiple times in a few month time frame. Eventually one of those is going to be a little bit more longer lasting of a pain than the other time. So like stop being so reckless, pull up. Just you get in the paint, shoot the floater. Just shoot the floater. D Wade, like look
Tony
at
Parker. You put Tony Parker on.
Tony Parker versus D Wade. D Wade kept trying to go all the way to the rim and kept getting hurt. He was hurting his shoulders. He was hurting the wrist, hurting the finger, always because he kept falling on the floor. Pull up from 8 feet and just let the floater go. It's the same amount of points.
And you know what? Since we're
and
here,
get the dunk off when you get the dunk off.
Just to wrap this up real quick, so I asked you the question a little bit ago: should the Mavs tank? And I don't even know if they really can because you got Phoenix 3.5 behind them, and I don't know what the hell is happening in the desert right now. You got Portland, who's a half game behind Phoenix, and the Spurs are too far out. So Dallas might just get stuck in the play-in.
I think you just play whoever's healthy. Whatever, like we say this in the air crew, or like what crew compliment, whatever. Is this a good crew compliment? All the people qualified to do what they're doing, put them out there and see what happens. You might not have the dream team, but you have a legal crew. You got a legal group starting 5. You have some rotational players. Let them get the opportunity. We talked about that game with Minnesota OKC a couple weeks ago. They had a lot of injuries, so they played Dillingham alongside Anthony Edwards. They got a lot of shots for a lot of guys that probably wouldn't normally get shots, especially with like Randall, because we talked about how Randall sometimes the ball can stop with him. The offense doesn't really flow through him. Sometimes it can stop. So guys are just trying to get rebounds, to get putbacks and get shot opportunities. Dallas just might have to just put whoever's healthy out there and just run it as best they can. I mean, you have a Hall of Famer at your head coaching position, got a future Hall of Famer wearing number 31. It's like, hey, this is what your GM did put you in predicament where now it looks like a bunch of people aren't going to do their jobs well, or a bunch of people are inadequate. But
did you hear the new Suns rumor?
Just bad luck. I heard that Kevin Durant's on the outs with them.
Well, yeah, we've been knew that.
Yeah, that's the only thing I really heard.
Well, so the other day, I had brought up how there's rumors around that Mike Budenholzer may get let go after the season.
Oh, yeah, he might get fired, yeah.
So today, we got a mini report on who the replacement could be.
And somebody else on the podcast?
Before I say this name, I just want y'all to know, if this were to happen, this is why the Phoenix Suns are the Phoenix Suns. Chauncey Billups. Say what up, Mike? One Mike podcast, Mondays and Thursdays, y'all. Noon Eastern. Yeah, so he's a free agent after this season, Chauncey Billups. This is the last year of his contract. He has no extension. I would imagine Portland would want to extend him with the run that they've been on over the last few weeks. But if not,
I will be looking at some of these foreign coaches, like some of these guys from the Olympics. Some of those coaches.
Hey, what David Blatt up to these days?
Like, I mean, just we see how it's working well. Well, it was working well for Toronto today. Just kind of lost their players, but that guy fights and he argues and he challenges the press. He challenges the referees for, when they're only shooting 2 free throws in a quarter. Like he challenges them to play good basketball. OKC was they kind of grew their coach in house. He was a G League coach, and he was with Alex Caruso back in the day. So I think either
Mostly everybody did besides Portland.
yeah,
But that would just be such a Matt
it's just a
Ishbia thing.
byproduct of this new money jumping into the NBA and thinking that I launched a business from my garage or my dorm room or my apartment in whatever city in America, and it went from my idea to being sold for a few $1 billion. Now I'm going to use this money. I'm going to buy a
Chauncey
team. I'm
still
going to
ain't
do the
got a
same thing.
contract, Mike.
And it's like, no.
Right.
And I think that happened with that Russian oligarch that bought the
Nets. You talking about Joe
bought
Tsai?
the net. No, the first guy,
No,
the Russian
the
guy.
guy before him. Yeah.
So he bought it. I didn't even know he sold it. He bought it and was like, you know what, this ain't for me. I'm
I
going
forgot
back to
Joe
Russia.
Tsai was the one that
And then Joe Tsai bought it.
yeah,
So
he's
it's
the
like,
one that made Kyrie do the book reports and essays.
yeah, then so it just a lot of these guys with this new money, like Mike said, I don't think they know basketball, or they don't know what it's like to grow an organization. I believe they grew their idea in an environment, especially when you get like these Silicon Valley guys and guys who made their money through tech. Tech is already there.
Right.
You just had a good idea that you probably worked really hard on, but it was already in this hyperspace already.
Hey,
So
Brooklyn.
you took your thing and threw it in there and it exploded. You didn't have to grow like everything. Like Amazon was like, it
Yeah,
wasn't a
that's his
market for
name.
that. He grew that from the beginning. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Overall,
Brooklyn, holla at your MA in organizational leadership right here, baby. But anyway, you know what I'm saying? Speaking of money, Mr. Logical, you pointed out something to me the other day. There's some NFL teams apparently that have some season ticket drama. What's going on?
I saw a couple reports that kind of sparked my interest. And the funny thing is, and we live in this world of like instant gratification, instant answers, instant reactions, instant outrage, instant joy. When I first saw like the thumbnail, I thought it was like, oh, this is fucked up. So I hit you up like, yeah, we should talk about this. So then I watched a couple more videos and kind of read into it. It's simple. These guys had season tickets. They probably had them, one guy, the guy in Green Detroit had his tickets like 25 years. So we know the history of Detroit. They haven't been really good for most of the last 25 years. So he probably was selling his tickets all the time. And then he was like, now that we're good, they have a problem me selling the tickets. I'm like, yeah, because you probably making a crazy amount of money off of it and they're not really getting a cut. That's how business works. If they have the leverage, they're going to use it. But I think part of the leverage is can't resell your tickets. That's one of the things they want you. They want dedicated fans in the stands. They don't want a home game and you and I are visiting Detroit and it's Washington versus Detroit. You're like, yo, you know what? Sports Reports order. We're going to check out this game. And now we're in the section in the end zone and it's a bunch of black and all these different colored jerseys from all these people, like the Chargers games look, and how some of the mainly the Chargers.
Whenever the Steelers go on the road.
The Chargers. When the Steelers are on the road, it's all Steelers fans. When the Raiders play at home, it's everybody. It's like the games they play in Europe. It's just jerseys in the crowd. It's just everybody who wanted to come to London to watch a football game. It's just a hodgepodge of jerseys. And these teams are like, listen, no, we want your money and we want you to sit here and watch the game. We don't want you to then take
good one,
pay whatever it costs, 10 grand for season tickets. And now every week you flipping those 2 tickets for, $2 grand each or whatever your tickets are.
Mm-hmm. So where do you stand on it?
From if it wasn't part of the package when you originally purchased it, if you bought
Don't
these
tell
tickets
Adam.
and they didn't give you any advisories about, hey, you can't resell these tickets, or there's a cap on the price, or there's only, you can resell, there's 9 home games, you can only resell 30%. So you can only sell 3 games. So pick the 3 games you want to resell your tickets for, but the other
So
6 you can't. If that's already been legislated and stipulated, then it's on the fan for thinking like no one was going to notice. So
check it out.
you get your tickets revoked. That's on you for just violating. Even though it's a dumb rule, I don't like the rule. If it's a rule, but if it's already established and you agree to it, you can't participate something that's adversary to the rule and then be like, oh, I can't believe they're doing this to me.
Hey, at the end of the day, say it on the screen. Shut the fuck up, because the moment that I give you money, those are my tickets. I can do with them what I see fit once they're in my possession, unless, like you said, there's a specific guideline that says that I can't. So I was looking on the Chargers website, for example, and I couldn't find anything that said you can't resell the tickets. What I found was they will hold you responsible if the person that you sell the tickets to, or it doesn't say sell the tickets, but whoever's going to the game in your place are still beholden to the conduct rules. So if you give your tickets to somebody, sell your tickets to somebody, they come up in here acting a fool, we can revoke your season tickets based off of their behavior. Now that I agree with, because like this is our stadium, our rules, they're representing you when they come to this stadium.
But if you're
So
selling them on StubHub, like I don't know the person's character. This person just
no,
was
but that
able to
ain't my
give you
problem, man. I
$600.
got the money, y'all, and I got the money from you. So you know what? That's your problem. Somebody
Okay.
else is willing to get into that line and buy those season tickets.
But
If
like I said, if the rule is clearly outlined and you agree to those terms, then because we know it's a money grab. Because what the guy in the Detroit saying, he was like, yeah, when we sucked, no one cared that I sold the
right,
tickets.
right.
I'm like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, like
But
I used to get tickets from people, not necessarily NFL tickets, but people would buy. There's 41 NBA home games. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
you're
So
not
ain't
going all
nobody
of them.
going to all 41 games. So there was a guy who had, certain sections. He said, "Hey, these are the games I'm going to. Y'all could pick from whatever," and we did that. You know what I'm saying? But when I look at the NFL, that's exactly it, Mike. They're upset that they're not getting the money. But they are, what I'm saying? They're not making a profit off of the ticket once it's sold, but they're getting the original ticket price in the first place, which is ridiculous. And in most of these stadiums, you have to have a PSL to buy the season tickets to begin with. So
Yeah,
so the NFL ain't hurting for money, first of all. So Kansas City does have what you're talking about. It says if you're selling more than a certain percentage of the tickets, they have the right to sell your season tickets to someone else. So I would imagine that if Kansas City has it, there's probably other teams that has it as well.
yeah. Green Bay, their thing was you can't sell 100% of your tickets. So if you sell
Yeah,
all your tickets, then you get revoked. So
right.
that was
And I
because, like
get
you
it.
said, you got to figure these traditional teams, especially like a team like the Cheesehead. You don't want a section that's supposed to be full of cheeseheads and they're trying to do the Lambo leap, and
Well,
it's
especially if it's
all
a playoff game at that, because
yeah, it's
season
all
ticket
like
holders they get
it's
playoff
all
tickets too.
Eagles fans in the end zone punching your player in the face and throwing beer on him when he's trying to celebrate his touchdown.
But some of
So I
these teams,
understand that piece.
saying you just got to do better, because I sell some Jaguar tickets if I had them. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
absolutely.
Like I sell some
They
Cardinal
should
tickets
be
if I had them.
they should be out there trying to give them out in raffles.
That's what I'm
They should just
saying.
they should be like, hey, what's 1 + 1? 2. You
Hell,
get 2 season tickets.
while we at it, the Dallas Mavericks should be doing that right now. They should be, they should have a whole stadium of Make-A-Wish kids. You know what I
I
mean? At this
didn't I
stadium.
didn't verify this, but did they really put a ban on people wearing Luca jerseys, or is that just like some shit that was on the
I
internet
don't know. I
and then
think
we just
that's
kind of
probably just
ran with
one of
it?
those internet things.
All
But
right,
but
I'm,
but
while you
so
talking, I'm gonna look it up just
so
confirm
I
by the
get
end of the
why an
show.
NFL team, like I said, especially if it's a playoff game, if it's a big game that's going to decide home field or playoff positioning, I can understand a team being frustrated and saying, yeah, they are going up with the tickets. I think it's like 8% or something like that for the Mavs. But but I can understand a team saying like, look, playoffs on the line. We need our truest, bluest fans up in here. Nothing more, nothing less. But like I said, once I make a sale, just like if I go to the store right now, and I know this is a horrible example, but I'm just making a point. If I go to the store right now and buy a drink, alcohol, and I come outside and I sell it to you, as long as you ain't underage, that ain't none of your business. That's my shit. That's my possession. When I buy these tickets, I pay good enough money for these tickets to be able to wipe my ass with them if I want to. You know what I
I
mean?
give
Like,
you that.
but
I give you that.
you know what I'm saying?
I'll give you that from a personal like, hey, this is my decision, but from an NFL business decision and
Yeah,
a
I get
home
it.
team business decision, they have to
Well, you
look
know
out for
what?
the best
You don't want me
interest.
to sell
Because
your tickets and
think
you
about
mad
it.
about that? Give your players guaranteed contracts. How about that?
Think about like the section where season tickets are. I imagine it's probably a bunch of season ticket holders who sit in a certain section.
Yeah.
So it kind of creates like this family atmosphere. So if you're selling these tickets every week and random people are in this atmosphere, then you get the fights. Like we see the fights all the time between Chargers and Raiders fans. I'm like, the Raiders nor the Chargers are gonna pay your bail money if you want to fight wearing their jersey. Just a heads up. You're going to jail. It's going, and if you get knocked out, it's going on the internet, and you're going to jail. And if you're there with your girl, it looks like she getting punched too. These videos are relentless. Either you're fighting on spilled beer and you look sloppy, your girl getting punched, your jersey's getting ripped off, and then you're going to jail. So,
Right.
and I understand, like if I'm the Detroit team or Cleveland, I'm like, listen, the dog pound is for Cleveland season ticket holders and Cleveland fans. I don't want 30 Bengals fans in the dog pound on a Monday night game when we finally get Cincinnati versus Cleveland on a Monday night. You know,
Right.
so
No,
as a
I get it.
fan, as a team, like I need the aesthetic to work as far as a showcase and the business aspect with the crowd, making sure they get all their concessions and drinks and parking and all the other things that I'm already charging people a lot for. Now you're giving up your tickets and you're creating a poor experience potentially for the home fans. Now they don't want to come. So now they're selling their tickets because, man, everybody in my section sold their tickets. And last week I was sitting there with this Raiders fan and this girl threw a Modelo on me and then he snuffed me and now it's all
Yeah,
over
they're
the
gonna throw
internet.
Modelo's on each other.
So it's like,
Yeah.
so it's like I'm now you don't want to go to the game. So I understand that. I don't know how big of a problem that is, but
Right.
I can understand. We've seen it. We see what it looks
I
like
mean,
when
it's got
you
to be a
don't
big
have
enough problem
control of
that they
your home
feel the need
crowd.
to do something about it. You know what I
Well, at
mean?
least I
Like,
think LA is probably like the biggest thing. Like if you look at like any LA Rams or Chargers game, it's like, but LA is a touristy city, so is Vegas. If you go to a Jets game, it's all Jet fans. Like I've gone to Jets versus Falcons a couple of times, and I've gone to like Eagles versus Jets preseason game. I wore my Falcons jersey, whatever. It's mostly like Jet fans sprinkled in with some Philly fans.
gangrene.
It's rarely like where you pan across the crowd and you don't see your team colors, very
Oh,
similar
look,
to like what's
all I
happening
got
in the
to say
Rams
is that
and
if you wanted me
Chargers.
to come to your stadium 8 or 9 times to watch Aaron Rodgers, I'm selling my tickets too. I'm just saying. But yo, so NIL, right? We've been talking about NIL for quite some time. Everybody said it was going to be the end of the sports as we know them. I don't know if it is or isn't, but
Yo, that argument is so ridiculous. Matt Rule said the same thing last week, and I'll chime in on it in a
well, Matt
second.
Rule is also not doing spring football this year, so I don't want to hear anything that he has to say about the sport changing or getting worse or anything like that. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, we were talking about these guys preparing for the NFL draft potentially. I brought up some basketball stuff that we'll get into, but you were talking about how the NIL gives the players a certain leverage. So, tell us more.
Yeah, okay. So the leverage with the NIL and the name, image, and likeness, and then basically just giving the avenue for college athletes to get just direct payments for services provided. We all felt like for all these years that we were watching these games and buying these jerseys and buying these tickets and going to games. It's like it's a lot of money being produced here because it's not as if we don't have an example of what it looks like because we had the NFL who, I mean, if you look at college football, we have 134 in Division
Soon to
One,
be
two.
136.
You have so many of these stadiums that have over 100,000 seats. You got Penn State puts 100,000 fans in,
Ohio State,
LSU, Ohio
Tennessee.
State, Tennessee, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bama's up to around 80,000. So like that's just off the top of my head, like 6 or 7 schools, and then you have teams that play games in Jerry World. I think they can get about 80,000 people in there. So we know it's a lot of money being produced, and the players weren't getting any of it. So now they're getting the money. So Matt Rule, that quote I want to, I'm paraphrasing, he was talking about how the NIL had definitely tipped the balance to the schools that have the boosters. And I'm like, yo, that's always been the case because even though I couldn't give them money directly,
And he had a
if I
school with boosters.
yeah, exactly. If I'm a kid from I'm a kid from Northern California, I want to go to school in the state of Oregon. So I can go to Oregon State, check out their locker room, or I can go to Oregon and check out their locker room, their uniforms, the Jordans, the helmets, and everything else. So I'm all like Oregon's already getting the leg up pre-NIL. Like if you go in the Oregon locker room right now, it's something like 16 TVs, and each one of them has like a gaming console attached to it. Then they have a museum. Then I think they probably even get Nike discounts and all this crazy stuff. But they definitely got all the uniforms, all the shoes, all the Jordan releases, all these special, Oregon Duck colorways that go for like $5,000 resales. These guys were getting them every single week. So there's always an advantage. Alabama players were getting more than UAB players from the school. So the NIL didn't change that. It just changed who gets the money. The money was always going to be more for SEC schools because they negotiated more. The Big Ten schools had the Big Ten network. They were going to get more to their schools. Now the players are getting more. And I don't mind it because it sets them up. They're adults. They're doing negotiations. They're hiring a team. Hopefully, they're getting some fiscal responsibility. Maybe they're getting out there and they're going to fail the fiscal responsibility and get a learning experience out of it. But that should be on them to figure that part out. Because I remember a lot of the talking heads were saying, we don't know how to pay them. So we can't figure out a good system to pay them. And what happens is Ohio State gets to pay more to their players than the University of Virginia. Yes, Ohio State sells jerseys all over the country. Virginia sells them in Charlottesville and maybe out to the Atlantic Ocean. Like that's their range that's their fan base. Ohio State's fan base is the rest of the country. There are Ohio State fans everywhere. So of course they're going to generate more money, and if those players get more money, they get more money. Life is not fairness; it's a meritocracy, and what you do and what you use with your leverage. They're using their leverage. Like, hey, I'm a top recruited player. You need a quarterback, and my mother wants a new Benz, so make it happen. If
Yeah,
you want
and
me to
see,
come play for your school, I mean, pay for my school, pay for my little sister's school, get my little brother scholarship, get my mama Benz, and I got you for 2 years. What's up?
see, in NIL, like, so it just depends on your perspective, right? Because you have a guy like Carson Beck who came into this season as a top draft prospect. He had a pretty bad year, ended up injured, by
Yeah,
his standard.
shouldn't have been a top draft pick at
Right,
all.
right. And so instead of going to the NFL now, coming off of this injury, maybe as a third round or fourth round pick, wow. No, for sure, Residente, 100%. Like he is now going to receive $4.5 million or so from Miami instead of being a third or fourth round pick. So now if he comes back and has a year this year, like his previous year, to this past season, then he's right back in these talks as a second rounder. Maybe he can get back into the late first round. So it provides that. So if you look at it from that standpoint, it's a great thing. I also think that we're having conversations about teams that we normally wouldn't talk about, like the Indianas of the world. And the best part
Yeah.
about Indiana is even though it was their new head coach bringing in players with him, he came from James Madison. So it wasn't as if he went out here and was like, oh, I want this Oregon player. I want that Penn State player. He still coached them up. He just brought those guys with him that in the previous times, they would have had to sit out the whole season. So they probably would have ended up just staying at James Madison and
Yeah,
not having the experience of making the playoffs. So that's a great point, Residente. Brock
and that
Purdy
and that
about
and
to
that's
get
part
paid
of it.
though.
And like Resident said, it changed the game. It's changed, but I don't think it's made it worse because I think college football at its core, you're looking at
Haves and
80,
have-nots.
just basic, you're looking at 83 scholarship players, something per team, somewhere in that
85,
range.
yeah.
85 scholarship players per team.
Yeah.
You're not paying for all of them, and depends on where you are regionally, you still have to fill out your whole team. So yeah, Tulane can go, and I think Utah got their quarterback from New Mexico State, I believe. They pulled him, but they still
That was
got
that
to.
was Vanderbilt that got Diego Pavia.
No. The Utah got a guy transferring this year from
Oh, this year the guy coming
this
in.
year.
I thought you were talking
Going
about
guy
last
come,
season.
yeah. So,
Okay.
but the rest of the team, when you look at them, is going to be a lot of JUCO guys, probably from a couple of JUCOs in Texas that they have a pipeline with, very good relationship with these JUCOs in Texas, and there's going to be a lot of guys from Salt Lake, Provo, Ogden, Lehigh. They still got to fill out their whole team. If you think you're one piece away, then I think the NIL gives you that opportunity. Alabama is still slap dab in the middle of high school football country. They're still going to be able to fill their team up with a bunch of guys who could be considered 2 or 3 stars, but they're probably 5 stars based off talent they played anywhere else in the country.
And that's
But
the thing. Teams like
because they play
Colorado.
there, they're still like Colorado needs this, like but they're still more likely going to be able to. You're going to get a good product because you're going to be able to bring in some players that are explosive from other teams, but still you have to recruit inside your state.
And and
So and
and
I think that's the difference. I think teams are still going to be able to do that. Texas is going to go buy a player, but they're still going to probably still get the best players in Texas just off
anyway,
recruiting.
right.
Yeah.
And that's where Rick Pitino, to take it over to basketball for a second, Rick Pitino, at one of his press conferences made a comment along the lines of, I lost these 3 guys. I can't replace them with high school guys. And that's kind of the thing that I guess coaches are feeling to a certain degree, because you lost those 3 guys, but there ain't no excuses. Go out there and get somebody and put another team out on this floor. But with
Yeah.
basketball, it's a little different because obviously there's only 5 people on the floor at a time, so you have a little bit more wiggle room and not have to spend as much money, because what we ran into this year, for example, was I was on here every week complaining about DJ Uyanga Alphabet Lele, and how he was playing awful and Mike Norvell needed to bench him. But you paid a certain premium to get him in the first place, so you can't sit him. Because for one, those boosters that paid that money want a return on investment. They ain't mad at him for playing bad. They want you to get him to play better. Sound like coaching to me, but when you sit a DJU down, there's a ripple effect potentially where other potential transfer players, especially quarterbacks, are looking at you going, well, damn, they sat DJ down, or whatever the case may be. Like, because we talk about this in the NBA, for example, like you traded Dwayne Wade. What would they do to me? He's Mr. Miami Heat. So, but in basketball, it's a little different because some of these guys are just one and dones anyway. They're going to come in for a year. They're going to be gone next year anyway. Whereas in football, you're trying to build that camaraderie year to year because they have to stay 3 years. So if you go get a high school kid, you're going to develop him and, try to do right by him as long as you're fortunate enough to have him. Whereas in basketball, they're here today, gone tomorrow.
Yeah, basketball's already kind of dealt with this, not necessarily NIL, but definitely a short-sighted system with the one and done that's been implemented for the last 17, 18 years, give or take.
Something like
Everybody
that,
sees
yeah.
Derrick Rose because Durant got drafted with
I think John Wall and Anthony
2007.
Anthony Davis. Well, John Wall.
I
So I
think
guess
Durant and Greg Oden were the first two I can think of. So that gets us back to
that
what,
came after one and done went away.
2007? Yeah, that was the one and done. I think that's when one and done started. Like that, those two guys. 'Cause I think both of those guys were ready to go to the NBA straight out of high school. I could be wrong, but we can fact check it here in a second. But so the NBA, the college basketball, they've already kind of dealt with and understanding the turnover of a
2005.
yeah, that turnover. So I think they already know. With football, I think a lot of these schools heard about the NIL transfer portal and thought it was going to be okay. Boom, this is the move. I got a great product. I put everything out there. I liken it to something like this. Like we didn't have dating apps growing up. Like in our 20s, we had to go out and you had to sit in living rooms. You had to woo. You had to recruit and everything else. And if you were good enough, it was mission complete, mission successful. Now you have these dating apps. Everyone has access to the dating apps, very similar to all these coaches having access to the transfer portal. But everybody's not getting the same kind of attention on these dating apps as other people. And you think because hey, I'm on the app, I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to do. I'm on the app, I'm checking it, I'm trying to have conversations, I'm being witty, I'm doing everything else. Like, listen, yeah, but this other place just looks better. This other guy just looks better. Listen,
Mhm.
dog, you got all the credentials. You're a stand-up guy, you're a smart guy, you're a respectful guy, and you do things the right way. Well,
Mhm.
this dude is flashy. This guy has the attention, the accolades. He's gonna get more attention for you.
You talking about
He's
Shador?
gonna
Oh, never mind.
just like I'm talking about just on like on the dating app.
I
So
know. I'm
more
just
likely they're gonna get more attention. You just got to make sure you cultivate the attention that you get, and make sure you keep those keep the attention of the people who are communicating with you on your end. Don't worry about this other person who has 90 hits and they got everyone lined up to come to their school. You got 10 guys, five or six guys can change your talk about Indiana. That coach brought what 5 or 6 guys from
I
uh
think it was more than that.
a handful. I mean, he didn't bring 85.
No, no, no.
Yeah. So he brought what maybe 11, 12,
It was 13.
13 guys. So he brought 13 guys from JMU, a lower level football program,
Made
brought
the
them up to
playoff.
the Big Ten, made the playoffs, was undefeated very late into the season. He didn't go look and try to get a player from Oregon and a player from Ohio State and a player from Michigan that was unhappy. He didn't do that. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna transfer these 13 people that have been rocking with me. You can work and try to get through all these 90 guys. Ohio State lost 2 games in the regular season with all these transfers and all this talent. They lost less games than Ohio State. They can say that. Hey, in the Big Ten schedule, we went 11-1. They went 10-2. Ultimately, the talent bore out that Ohio State went on a great run,
Yeah, and
legendary
Ohio
run, and
State
won the
smacked
Natty.
them directly.
Yeah,
Was
and
their only
Ohio
loss.
State gave them that
Yeah,
work, and
was
I
their
get
only
that,
loss
but
going into the
it
playoff.
was the
And
only
yeah,
loss.
and to your point, Rez, Vince Carter, he was that one and done, and I want to say it was 97, the year after Kobe came in. There was a lot of guys over the years that like Vince Carter probably could have went to the league out of high school. He had the reputation, jumping out the gym, all that kind of stuff like that. It probably served him well to go to North Carolina though. But 2005 was when it was officially you have to go to school for one
For 1
year,
year.
which is one of the dumbest rules, ever. I get why the NBA does it, but at the same time, it's just
The
it's
NBA,
it's antiquated at this point.
yeah, I think the NBA, we felt like they did it to kind of keep the college basketball product going because at that point they had a great run on high school guys coming into the league. You had KG,
Kobe,
Kobe, LeBron,
Jermaine
uh,
O'Neal came at
Jermaine
some point.
O'Neal.
You
I
know,
think there was
T-Mac,
T Mac. Who else was another?
Lou
I had the name
Williams.
Lou Williams. I think he was before. I'm thinking like the guys like before the rule kicked in. Dwight
Okay.
Howard got drafted in
Yeah, Dwight
2004.
Howard. Yeah.
So you had about 7 or 8 superstars in the league that were fresh out of high school. And the NBA is like, okay, we got enough stars in our league.
Al
We gotta
Harrington.
help. We gotta help college basketball maintain the same level of popularity. So
But
our
see, I didn't
pipeline
see it
product
that
was.
way. I
That's what
didn't
I
see it.
felt it.
That's not the way I saw it. I saw it as, why do I got to bring this guy into my league and try to tell you who he is when I got free advertisement? That's
That's
what
what I'm
I
saying.
saw.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
Well,
yeah,
not
yeah.
about. They don't care about college basketball's
No.
popularity. It's just you're
They care
doing me
about
a
the
service.
popularity of the player. Like, yeah, like I need you to go ahead and get this guy, get him all the limelight, get all the credibility, get people
Yeah, because if
watching
John
our
Wall didn't go to
pipeline
Kentucky, he
program.
wasn't going number one.
Yeah, let me get all these guys in the league. You guys get what you need because you're getting this free labor for a year, March Madness, all the TV deals and all the money you need. You're building up these guys for me, and then
Because he got in
I get
trouble. That's why.
Derrick Rose after the year he had at Memphis. So
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah,
Corey Maggette, if I remember correctly, he had the whole jewelry thing happen. Where, I don't know if that messed with his eligibility or not, but there was
was it like a
something.
was it like a crab leg situation?
Maybe I can't remember the exact specifics, but it was something that had to do with improper stuff. He got in trouble, so I think he just got out of there before the hammer came down.
Which
But
makes sense.
but yeah, like NIL is here to stay. I'm happy to see it for the players' sake. Sometimes it is one of those things where I'm like, man, but I think that it might not be good collectively for college football fans to a certain degree, but I think it gives more teams a seat at the table, and more teams. Like, we weren't going to talk about SMU probably more than not if they didn't move to the ACC and bring some transfers with them, or like we just talked about Indiana.
I think all the changes, if you look at it just from the outside, like if you just get an expansive look at the
Shout out to
college
Ray
football
Jackson,
this season, to me, because I watch college football,
Jimmy King.
and even though we've had this podcast for a couple of years, this past season was the most interesting to me because I felt like they opened up so many opportunities, even with all of like the new 18 team Big 10 and 18 team Big 12 and everything else. I felt like moving teams like BYU and Colorado to the forefront. Iowa State was getting an opportunity to play for a Big 10 a Big 12 championship. Arizona State being able to make the playoffs. I think the expansion of it is more in line with what we want. We didn't like the 14 playoff. We didn't like the BCS. The 14 playoff basically was 2 SEC schools and 2 other schools that they thought were gonna travel. Now you get 3 times as many teams. So now we're like, okay, I'm sick of seeing Alabama every year because people are like, oh, how's this happening every year? But now you get a team like Missouri and SEC. Maybe they can win on the SEC.
Yeah,
You
Bama
move
didn't get in
Oklahoma.
this year.
Bama didn't get in. You got SMU. So some of these players maybe now, because I guarantee you this, of all those 12 teams that made the playoffs, the SEC schools and the Big Ten schools that did not make the playoffs, they're talking to some of those guys trying to figure out, hey, how do I get you from Clemson to come here? How do I get you from SMU to come here? How do I get you to, leave Michigan and come down to Oklahoma? Because I think we're a couple players away. Everyone's maneuvering. And I think the people who aren't going to win in that are the people who are concerned that the maneuvering is allowed. It's entertaining.
Like
And
our
yeah,
guy from Pitt, right?
yeah,
Narduzzi, right?
like, yo, you got to embrace it. And I'm pretty sure he did. And they had a pretty good run. They had a good run for a long time this season. But you got to just get out of your own way and thinking, like, I wish the old way was the
Dabo went
current
into the
way. The
portal
price
this
of the
year.
brick has gone up, and the brick now is NIL. You still got to recruit home base. Yeah, you might not be able to keep every kid. Like I believe one coach talked about. I can't remember what the coach is, so I don't want to guess. No, was it Maryland? I think it was Maryland. The Maryland coach.
Mike
Guy
Locksley.
said he said the guy walked into his office. He was like a second or third string running back and was like, "Listen, coach, if you want me to stay here, I need $600,000." He's like, oh, "Man, you need me to help you pack?" Like I'm not. You're a third string guy, so like if you got to deal with that conversation every once in a while, and you're an old coach, Nick Saban, yeah, I get it. But like I said, I think these guys dealing with that, understanding negotiation, understand marketing, understand building a team, understanding your talent. Carson Beck in any other year would have maybe gone back to Georgia, but Georgia's going to re-up. There's only so many years you can play at a top school
Only so
and
long
not
they
get
can
replaced.
pretend. Yeah, they got
So
Gunnar Stockton ready to take over.
so they have a guy. Every major school has a guy that's in 11th grade right now that's going to be their incoming freshman in 2 years. So if you don't get it done, and then maybe you go to one of these schools that they don't have that guy, and you
Yeah,
get
just
4
like just
million.
like a guy like Malik Murphy, right? You had Quinn Ewers, you had Arch as the third string.
Yeah,
He had to leave before the playoff, even though if Quinn Ewers had got hurt, it was going to be him in a playoff game, because he was the second string at the time.
yeah.
He was like, "No, I see what's behind me. I see the hype train. I
I see
got
the
to get up
writing on
out
the
of
wall.
here."
I have to. You got to divorce yourself from your comfort and just be realistic. I think Matt
Right.
Rule is not locked. I think he's locked into what he was comfortable with at what was it,
When he was
Baylor
at
and
Baylor. Yeah.
Baylor and Temple. And like, yeah, you may not have like your experience with the Carolina Panthers, but
They didn't like it
NFL,
either. The Panther fans
yeah,
didn't like it either.
I think NFL coaches now, yeah, they might have to deal with a little bit more ego at the combine.
Mhm.
Caleb Williams saying, like, I'm not going to give my medical to all 32 teams. You all aren't going to get an opportunity to draft me. It was true. He wasn't going to slip to the second round. These reports, these anonymous reports, and this is another thing. If you're a reporter and someone gives you an anonymous report, it doesn't hit as hard as you think it does because no one put their name to it. So if someone who's the assistant to the quarterback coach for the Giants or for the Pittsburgh Steelers who they're nowhere near drafting these top guys, and they say something like, you know, keep my name off the record, but I think this guy's super arrogant. I heard a lot of people say he came off really arrogant in the meeting. That's not a story. We can see that he's cocky. You don't show up with two diamond necklaces and your hair cornrow, flashing your watch, and not cocky. You're not Deion Sanders' son,
And he's a
and you're not
rapper.
cocky. He's a rapper. His dad is Deion Sanders. The man wore
Who was a
Jerry curl.
rapper?
The man had a Jerry curl on and told the team, I would have charged him so much money to have to put me on layaway before he got drafted. This who raised this man. The expectation is gonna come in there and just be like, I just really want to get an opportunity to come
They
out to a
lucky
ball.
they ain't talked to
When gonna
Shiloh because
happen?
he might have been arrogant and hit him.
Yeah, Shiloh would have slapped him. Like, you asked me a question like that. What's wrong with you? You know who my dad is. But
Shiloh
Jackson
would have
Dart
walked
was in
up.
there. Like I said,
Shiloh would have walked up in
Jackson
the
Dart
dressing
was in
room
there
and been like, "What you
swagging
got on
up.
my 40, homie?"
Yeah, Jackson Dart was in there with his jewelry on and his mullet. Look, listen, you got to be 100% confident in your life to be diamond up with a mullet on national TV. So, like, he wasn't going in an interview talking about, I'm really appreciative about being here. These guys are professionals. They were in a professional sport before they call it professional sport, and they're operating within that space. Are guys going to be busts who are, big man on campus and now they're in these NFL interviews and they're fucking it up? Possibly, but that's what living you learn.
Raised and
So like
coached him. And yeah, that was one of my points and questions last week is Shador going to have a unprime process where he has to be deprogrammed from being under Dion, just from the standpoint of what's the word I'm looking for? Like that's all he knows. He doesn't know anything else, or it's been a very long time since he had a coach that wasn't Dion, if he's ever had a coach that wasn't Dion. So
Yeah,
so
but
there
he has a great source of as a his calling his dad, like, yeah, I'm working through this, whatever. And I don't
he
know
does,
what the
but his
rule
dad wasn't a quarterback.
I don't know what the rules are as far as communication between players and owners, but Brady being a minority owner in the Raiders, but he's a Brady disciple. I think he's part of the TB12 network. I don't know if that's a
Yeah.
conflict of interest. If you can call him and say, "Hey, the cover 3 fire zone, like, how do you beat that?" I don't know if Tom Brady can talk to him about that. If
Why not? He was working
he's
with
not,
Will Levis.
I, once again, I don't know what point of the season. can you do that? Is it like, can I call
I'm
you in
not
week
sure.
6?
Yeah, you can't call him on week 6. You know what I mean? But like, but also like Brady's in the booth too. So I don't
But
know.
Brady
So
has some strange rules about being in the booth. Like he can't go most of the pre-meetings. So it's like he just basically shows up to probably wherever they're playing the games Friday night, checks into his hotel, gets a whole day Saturday to chill by the pool, and then Sunday does the game, and then he goes home because he can't be in the meetings with the game plans and stuff like that because he's a part owner.
yeah, I'm interested to see where Shador ends up. I'm interested to see Shador on the field. I'm ready to see if he can be deprimed. So we'll see. But lastly, another college football note. A couple of years ago, or maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, Florida State and Clemson became the big bad bullies of the block and said, we won out. The ACC just isn't doing it for us anymore. We're watching the SEC and the Big Ten cake all up. Why are we making similar money to the Big 12 when we're better than them? We're in the South as well. So both schools tried to take the ACC to court to challenge the grant of rights. The grant of rights, of course, are the TV rights that the conference owns until 2036. So what that means, for lack of better words, is if Florida State and Clemson or whoever leaves the ACC right now, the ACC has their home game rights until that 2036 year. So that's what Florida State and Clemson were trying to get out of. So we have a settlement finally.
Okay,
Now,
let's break it down.
throughout different points of this situation, it has been brought up that the buyout fee to get out of the conference would be in the neighborhood of $250 to $300 million.
That sounds ridiculous.
The grant of rights, as a refresher, it was brought in when Maryland left the ACC back in 2014 to join the Big Ten. That was the ACC's last ditch effort of nobody else ain't leaving. So, so we going to give y'all 20 years of this deal. After 2036, we can do what we want. ESPN is the holder of this. So in this settlement, next year, if somebody decided to leave the ACC next year, it would be $165 million. From that point, it goes down close to $20 million each year. So this is the number. This is the year that I want you to keep your eyes on. So 2030 is when the Big Ten contract runs out, the TV deal. Their 10-year, $7 billion TV, $7 billion, I said, $7 billion TV deal runs out in 2030. So in 2031, it's thought that this buyout might be down to about $75 million by then. So Maryland paid about 50 or so to get out at the time that they got out. So this would take you down to 75. But that's not all. That's not all. The ACC has their legacy schools.
6 years they can buy out, and that's anyone, or
that's anybody.
Anybody can buy out of the ACC, and you're saying potentially join the Big Ten.
Yeah, or SEC, whatever. But yeah, I'm just going with the Big Ten just because of the timing.
Okay.
So then from there, that's not it though. So the ACC has their legacy schools, which is everyone but SMU, Cal, Stanford, because they just joined last year. So out of that, those schools are going to get 40% of the money, the TV deal money and all that. They're going to get 40% of the money. The extra 60% that's left over goes to the schools with the ratings and media exposure. So that's your Florida States, your Miamis, your Clemsons, your North Carolina.
So, let me get straight. There's 16 teams in the ACC right now, right?
There are 18 because Notre Dame's a partial member as well.
Okay, so they're going to take 40% of the TV deal
and divvy it up
evenly.
Besides Cal, Stanford, and SMU. So yes,
they don't get any of that,
right? And then they're going to take the remaining 60%
goes to the best performing, best highly rated.
Yes,
TV
so not by performance,
just TV ratings.
Just TV ratings.
So 75 North Carolina with Bill Belichick as a head coach. They're on TV all the time.
They gonna get that money.
and Cal goes undefeated, and no one
Yes,
watches any of their games.
because when Cal and Stanford joined the ACC, they gave up 7 years of TV money. So the first 7 years that they're in the conference, they don't get any of it.
Are they getting some
SMU,
back bread from Pac-12?
they still got there was a settlement. So I don't know what the
Okay.
exact number is, but there was a settlement.
Hopefully that should last 7 years.
SMU, on the other hand, gave up 9 years
Just to join the ACC?
to join the ACC to
You
get
should
out
have
of
joined
the
the SEC.
G5.
You were right there. The SEC was right there.
Yeah, SEC don't want them.
They could. I would have. If you think about it, I bet they're gonna look back and say, "Man, we should have let Oklahoma stay
Maybe, and I
and
mean,
taken SMU."
maybe if Florida State, Clemson, or whoever does leave, maybe that opens the door for SMU back to the big, to go to the Big 12 with their Texas brethren. But but with that being said, Miami and North Carolina come out of this as the winners because Florida State and Clemson got to be the big bad bullies on TV. More so, Florida State bashing the ACC, talking about how awful the leadership was. Clemson was like, yeah, talk that. And then Miami and North Carolina were just chilling on the side, and now they're going to
And
benefit from
Clemson's
it.
about to get all these primetime games.
Yep.
Suddenly.
And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because what do? You cook the books. So so next year, for example, Miami opens the season at home with Notre Dame. The year after, Notre Dame plays Miami, Florida State, and North Carolina. The year after that, Clemson. The year after that, they play Clemson and Miami, and then the year after that, they play Florida State. So you put college football university, as I like to call Notre Dame, in these games because as a partial member, Notre Dame plays 5 ACC. Was that?
So your signal cut out a little bit when you're running out of teams. I got like Notre Dame's playing Miami.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
No, it's still kind of cutting out.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's a strange deal because I still think that there's going to be a bigger master plan of having like 4 major conferences and basically just putting the best 16 teams they can pull from that and making that the championship. And everybody else in college football is going to end up being second tier. So I don't know if that happens in 2031. I don't know if teams hold out on those deals because we talked about the SEC wanting guaranteed spots and the Big Ten wanting 4 guaranteed spots. I just feel like they're going to use that leverage, which is, coaches want to talk about the NIL leverage that these schools are getting. This influence they have over these playoff committees, that needs to be, that's probably the biggest question. And the ACC, I think they're just holding off for dear life. They're in the best market range to make a to make a good run at it because they just have the East Coast. And we talked about the East Coast time zones, the time slots.
Right.
It's not a lot of us on the East Coast watching. Cal plays Oregon State, and that game starts at 10 o'clock at night. It is unlikely that a bunch of people on the East Coast are going to watch that game to the point where the ratings are going to match North Carolina Clemson that came on at noon. Like it just is highly unlikely. So I think Cal's getting a raw deal.
So testing.
Got you.
All right. So as I was saying, this upcoming season, Notre Dame opens the season at Miami. Next year, they play Miami, Florida State, and North Carolina. In 2027, they play Clemson. In 2028, they play Clemson and Miami. And in 2029, they play Florida State. So you're cooking the books because how do you get high ratings outside of just being the better teams in your conference? You play Notre Dame. And you know what I mean? So Notre Dame, as a partial member of the ACC, plays 5 ACC opponents every year in football. All their other sports are in the ACC, basketball, so on and so forth. But in football, they play 5. So that was going to be the next thing, right? Because everybody's been trying to predict and talk about when is Notre Dame going to have to join a conference? And I don't know if they will have to.
Never.
But if they do have to, what happens when Florida State or whoever, Florida State, North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson, whatever combination of two teams or whatever you want to come up with, what happens when they leave the ACC? I don't think Notre Dame is sticking around with this deal with an ACC that doesn't have a Florida State or Clemson or a Miami or whatever, because
as of right now, I don't see a single reason for Notre Dame to give
there
up
is
their
not.
leverage.
There is not a single reason because they don't share money with anybody.
We don't share money. We get a lot of money. We have fans everywhere.
They kept
we
all the
the
playoff
good
money.
team every
Ohio
year.
State had to share. Ohio State won the national title and had to share their money.
Notre Dame is getting, they're on TV all the time.
Yeah,
they
I want to
fans, they have movies, they have documentaries. Like I said, and they put a good team out there. I know BYU was independent for a while, and they were putting a, pretty solid team with solid players, but they weren't putting, 10, 11 win teams out there like Notre Dame has been doing.
So check this.
Notre Dame has no reason to acquiesce to anybody's request.
They get $50 million from NBC. They get $17 million from the ACC. So that's $67 million. So by themselves, they're pulling in about $6 million shy of what the Big Ten is bringing in. So yes, there's no reason. But as I was saying, if some of those schools leave the ACC, I don't think Notre Dame is sticking around to play those 5 games. Notre Dame is probably, to themselves, they're higher than the Big 12, like you're beneath me. The SEC might not take.
I think the Big 12 is enough because I think the ACC is just enough to keep for their wins to be considered credible.
Right.
Their wins, their games are, like I said, their games are on a new.
See, but that's the question. What is the Big Ten TV deal if you add Notre Dame? It's already 10 years, $7 billion.
I don't think Notre Dame moves the needle for the TV deal. I think they drive up the asking price. And if I'm the Big Ten, is like, I don't want, because more likely they're going to come in and probably try to negotiate their own. Like, hey, we're joining your product. You guys were getting $72 million. We're going to join. It might jump up to 90. We still want 100 because we're the reason you're going from 72 to 90. We want 100, and we're Notre Dame, and we could do it. If everybody else was getting like 100 and they were still getting just 67, I can see them going back to the drawing board. But they'll probably give it a couple of years. But I can't see them giving up because I think they like to control. It's not just a matter of
so too. Money. I agree with that, but also
they have complete autonomy over everything they want to do. So if they wanted to say, hey, you know what? We're no longer playing the 5 ACC games, whatever that contract is, we void it or it ends. Now we're going to play 5 Big 12 schools. Depends on how good the Big 12 gets, how much, they play, and then they can go back to the independent schedule, and they can. Especially if it gets to like 16-team playoffs, they're like, oh yeah, all we need is
so Notre Dame
wins. We're in. Okay, cool. We'll play 5 Big 12 games.
Give me my money. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So Notre Dame's deal with the ACC expires the year after the grant of rights. So 2037. Their deal with NBC that they just re-upped for $50 million a year runs out in 2029, which is the year before the Big Ten contract runs up. Now, yes, if I'm Notre Dame, I'm sticking with NBC. I'm making my own money, and I'm getting this extra money for these dummies over in Charlotte. You know what I mean? That want to pay me money to play 5 games a year. Whatever, but that's the thing, right? Notre Dame is the death knell, right? Because before Notre Dame had this contract with the ACC, you know who they had the contract with? The Big East.
Big East.
Where they at? You know what I'm saying? So
the Big East crumbled because I think they couldn't see the writing on the wall.
And Notre Dame is actually but Notre Dame still gets a vote, even though, like I said, all their sports are in the ACC. Their football is independent, but they play the 5 games a year. But they still get a vote. So when SMU got voted in, Notre Dame was a part of that. Cal and Stanford, Notre Dame was a part of that. So that's what you get when you deal with Notre Dame. So if Notre Dame wants to break the contract with the ACC, the Big Ten, I don't think is going to give them that deal. So they're going to be independent if they were interested. I don't think the Big Ten would take them in.
I think the
for a
Big Ten
deal
takes
like
them in.
that. Not for a
I
deal
think
like that. I don't think so.
I think the Big Ten takes them in because no matter what, they draw eyeballs,
Georgetown's in the Big East.
and that's all. And that's all you need. Like I don't need Notre Dame to come into my conference and lose games and play poorly. I need Notre Dame to come in the conference. They can beat, two or three of our mid-lean Big Ten teams. And then
Uh-huh.
maybe they match up with Michigan every once in a while. Maybe every few years they match up with Ohio State, but not every year because you need them to get 10 wins just so
Right.
you can have another school that's headed towards a championship and you can use this leverage to say, hey, we got a school that's 10-2. They lost their 2 games to our comp. They lost to Penn State and Ohio State. Ohio State right now is 10-2 and Penn State's 9-3. We think they should be in this 16-team playoff based off of their strong wins over Notre Dame, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
It just as a bargaining chip, and I think Notre Dame understand that. So it's like they're not hitching their wagon to anybody else's horse. So
No, I get that, but I'm just saying, like, if the ACC breaks apart, they're going to want to put their basketball somewhere, and their other sports somewhere. I don't think they're going to stay in an ACC that doesn't have a Florida State, Clemson, Miami, potential North Carolina, and the best team left over from a name recognition point is what? Virginia Tech.
but aren't
Not
they? Don't you think Notre Dame is exclusive enough to where it's just a name on the front of the jersey and it doesn't matter, and they can just kind of like, do they need an affiliation? Do they need to be part of some kind of union, or can they truly operate independently at a high level and be as financially or even more financially
No, I think they need the
successful than the
conference
rest
for
of
the
these?
other. They need the conference for the other stuff, especially the Olympic sports and all that. Like just for traveling purposes, trying to build out an independent schedule in
Okay,
basketball, for example, is just
that would be chaos. Okay,
yeah, because basketball is. I know it's 40 games for the national champion, 6 games in the NCAA tournament. So max, you're talking 34 regular season games. But without a conference, you don't even have a conference tournament. So, you have to be damn near picture perfect probably just to get an NCAA berth to begin with. So, you know what I mean?
you
So,
just gotta hitch your wagon to the
yeah. And you know what I mean?
best
So that's what I'm
available
saying. So,
basketball
I think
conference.
so I think if Notre Dame came to the Big Ten and said, hey, we want to play 5 games against your guys, just like we did with the ACC, the Big Ten going to say kick rocks. You know what I mean? And then now you're stuck with
That
Big
depends on
12.
how many years
Is the
Michigan is
SEC
down.
going to take you? You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if
That
Notre Dame
depends
will want to
if
go to the
Michigan
SEC.
doesn't come. If Michigan doesn't come back up, if they have this Rich Rod Brady Hoke kind of run, where it's like they're 7-5 multiple years back, they're changing a couple of coaches. I think they'll take on any positive publicity they can get because we know Michigan, the Maize and Blue, is always going to sell, but you do need some flagship wins, and bringing in a team like Notre Dame, like I
Yeah.
think that does. I just publicity and name only. Just the fact that I don't care what the status of the team is.
Yeah. So that's it though. You know what I mean? Like I just think that, 2029 is going to be an interesting year because I don't see why NBC wouldn't, renew with Notre Dame. But, then it's just going to turn into what are these ACC teams going to do? Because everybody's focused on Clemson and Florida State.
If Peacock is popping, I guarantee they'll renew it because the social, like these
Well, the
platforms, the
Big
streaming
Ten got that too.
platforms, that's the because you can watch it anywhere.
Yeah, the
And
Big Ten
I
got
watch a lot of games on
Saturday night.
Peacock. The stream's always good. I think I don't really watch too many shows or movies. Like Apple TV has a lot of movies, but they also they have like an MLS deal.
Yeah, and they got
Paramount,
Lioness.
I think they have some European soccer deals, like UEFA, I believe, and there's some NFL. Then they have TV shows and movies. So I believe Paramount, they're getting NBA. That's something they're gonna have NBA games on
I thought that
Peacock.
was Peacock.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying on Peacock.
Okay,
I
yeah,
meant
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Peacock.
yeah.
I was just thinking Paramount. But Peacock's gonna have the NBA games. They get their weekly
Boycott
football
Peacock.
game, and so if they keep keep the college football thing running with the Big Ten and Notre Dame as an independent, they got the week wrapped up. They got our attention. Like I say, you throw a few TV shows that are winning Emmys and a couple of movies that are nominated for Emmys, the way Paramount's doing, you're gonna keep people locked in for that $7.99 a month.
Yep. It is what it is. But, hey, this has been Sports Reports as Ordered. We will be back on Friday, with some more around the association and some other things around the sports world. He is the world-renowned, the one and only, Mr. Logical. Do not, I repeat, do not bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. And of course, like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things. We love you. And while you're doing the good things, have you a liquid death. You know what I'm saying? We'll see y'all on Friday, y'all. Peace and love.